supersonic speed!
Let's rock!
Here we go! Let's pop!
Choose your character.
Dark Souls is a series that's known for many, many things. Above all of the base level perceptions that onlookers might have about it though, the thing that strikes me most about it and endears me most to its world is its uniquely grim and dour setting. In Dark Souls, you're effectively navigating your way through the end times of a slowly dying world. Any solutions presented to the player on how to fix it are made clear to be purely temporary. The flame will eventually burn out. Within Dark Souls' world, you can find a wide variety of characters who react to the situation they find themselves in a wide variety of different ways. You get characters like Siegward of Katarina in Dark Souls 3, who makes it his goal until his dying breath to keep a promise to a dear friend. You get series regulars like the trusty Patches, who takes advantage of the grim state of affairs to personally benefit himself. You get tragic cases like Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, who drove himself into a mad, hollowed state, desperately trying to preserve his world. And then, standing right there, gazing off the steps of the undead parish, you get Dark Souls' poster child, a true standout amongst its world, and many players' sole jolly companion, Solaire of Astora, the Jovial son. This is Choose Your Character, a series where we take a biographical look at different characters from different games and see just what makes them tick. Let's roll. Solaire is a standout character in the Dark Souls series for a variety of reasons, from his role as one of the series' only purely helpful and benevolent characters at first glance, to his popularity in the fandom leading him to effectively become the series' unofficial mascot, to the unexpectedly dark turn his otherwise innocuous story takes in the latter half of Dark Souls 1's runtime. He is an interesting character to discuss, since while many casual onlookers will definitely be familiar with him, his visage, and his catchphrase, only the truest of Dark Souls players know the tragedy that dwells within their beloved Sunbro. To explain it all, let's start from the top. The beginning portion of a first-time player's trek through Dark Souls will likely be an arduous one. Between not knowing where to go, potentially not understanding gear and builds, and battling several powerful enemies, bosses, and mini-bosses that stand in the way, topped off by the creeping feeling that this is just the beginning of what's likely to be a long, long journey. After the player has managed to overcome the game's introductory gauntlet known as Undead Burg and beaten their first true boss, the Taurus Demon, the first thing on their mind will likely be where the nearest bonfire is and how to get to it as soon as possible. As they round the corner nearing into the undead parish for the first time and see the settlements around them being bathed in sunlight, they may be forgiven for thinking that they found some momentary respite, and while they won't have found themselves a bonfire, they'll have found something arguably more valuable: a friend.
Ah, hello. You don't look hollow, far from it.
This is Solaire of Astora. The player first encountering him here is notable in the game for a variety of reasons, not the least of which being that he's likely the first non-aggressive character that the player has encountered for quite some time. Through his dialogue, the player can ascertain that he's a warrior who intentionally became undead with the goal of, quote, finding his own son, a goal that he's fiercely dedicated to. He's also astutely aware of the sorry state of the world around him, yet doesn't seem too bothered by it, offering that he and the player engage in jolly cooperation. For what's effectively the game's introduction to summoning and friendly NPCs, Solaire leaves a remarkably good impression on the player, with his resolve, friendliness, and commitment to his goal making him probably the most pleasant encounter you've had in the game up to this point. From here, Solaire's story takes a backseat until the player happens upon their next boss, and arguably the end of Dark Souls' elongated opening, the Bell Gargoyles. This is effectively a 2 versus 1 fight that will leave many first-time players walled. Luckily, there's a friend lurking in the sunlight. By managing to retain their humanity, the player can summon Solaire for this battle, turning a difficult 2v1 into a much more manageable 2v2. With Solaire's help, you'll likely overcome this boss fight without a hard time, and his assistance will endear you to him even more. This set of circumstances can be repeated during the fight against the disgusting gaping dragon boss, a boss that's made much easier with Solaire's help. Solaire isn't encountered again until the player reaches Orlando, the city of the gods and the game's halfway point. His presence in this area alone marks a pretty similar set of circumstances to the player's first encounter with him, since he's sitting in what's very clearly designed to be a rest spot after what's probably one of the hardest non-boss sections in the entire game.
Oh, there you are. You've been quiet these days. Smooth summoning out there. Anytime you see my brilliantly shining signature, do not hesitate to call upon me. You've left me with quite an impression. I would relish a chance to assist you.
His dialogue here is just as friendly as the first time the player encountered him, with him offering up some friendly banter and joking that the player might have feelings for him. After this, the player will find themselves facing Dark Souls 1's most notorious challenge, a battle that tests the resolves of every prospective player who takes it on: Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smo. To say that this fight is difficult for a first-time player would be the understatement of the century. There's a reason that streamers and YouTubers who play this game always make clips out of their victories.
Did I do it?
The fight is essentially another 2v1, except against two highly aggressive sapient opponents rather than two slow-moving bestial gargoyles. Being able to overcome this fight is ultimately Dark Souls 1's biggest skill check, with persevering being proof that the player can handle what comes later. But wouldn't you know, you can call upon a little bit of help for this fight as well. While it may be controversial to do so amongst hardcore purist players, as it's perceived as taking the easy route for one of the game's biggest challenges, there is absolutely no shame in summoning Solaire to assist you against Ornstein and Smo. He levels the playing field dramatically and turns what would otherwise be an arduous and borderline unfair battle of attrition into a much more manageable one. Beating this fight with Solaire is likely the moment where the player will be truly endeared to Solaire as a companion fully. You've overcome some of the game's hardest challenges alongside him. You've defeated multiple dangerous adversaries. Sadly though, as you've reached the peak of it, there's nowhere left to go but down. What follows is the second half of Dark Souls, where the structure changes significantly and the game gets noticeably less forgiving. After the players made it through the uninspired Demon Ruins and defeated the equally uninspired Demon Fire Sage boss, they'll find themselves immediately thrust into another fight against one of the game's least fun bosses, the Centipede Demon. As we've discussed before, however, the player can employ help with this fight. Just as previously, Solaire can be called on to assist with this fight, and his help can prove instrumental in overcoming the stacked odds in this boss fight. After it's defeated, the player could be forgiven for simply thinking that Solaire would have vanished away, waiting to be called on for another tough fight. However, that's not exactly what happens. Immediately after defeating the Centipede Demon, the player can find Solaire at the entrance to the lava-soaked Lost Izalith. Unlike all previous encounters though, his demeanor has noticeably changed. He's no longer his jovial, friendly self. He's sullen, depressed, and lamenting his inability to find his son. He repeats the same sentiments over and over, seemingly lost in anguish over his cause. In the world of Dark Souls, where the first sign of someone mentally slipping usually means the worst, where even the most stalwart and noble warriors are susceptible to becoming mindless hollows, this should immediately strike the player as a bad sign. However, without a means of helping Solaire, they're forced to press on. Should they make it through Lost Izalith and take a detour away from the upcoming boss fight to explore the entire area, they'll be treated with a truly grim sight.
My very own son. I am the son. I've done it. I have. Yes, I did. I did. Oh. Oh. My son, it's so dark.
This is the unfortunate fate of Solaire of Astora. Driven mad by his quest, he placed a parasitic sunlight maggot atop his head, draining his last semblance of humanity and turning him into a mindless drone. Unable to recognize you, his friend, he attacks you, forcing you to fight back and put him down. His last sentiments are him believing in his mad state to have found his son, before anguishing over the darkness that awaits him. Solaire's journey is over. It was ended by you, his dearest friend. This raises a lot of questions. What did Solaire truly desire out of his quest for his own son? Did he seek a way to live in eternal light, staving off the era of dark? Did he seek godhood and the ability to rival on Orlando? Was it all just the insane ramblings of a misguided fool? Was your friend Solaire mad the whole time, and you, the player, enabling his delusions? Well, the player will never know. His story is over. However, there is a way to save him. If the player has enough forethought and insight keen enough to stockpile 30 humanity, a resource that's just as scarce as it is valuable, they can offer it to the Daughter of Chaos above the Demon Ruins. While this might seem inconsequential at first and a potentially massive resource dump, it does come with one upside. The player gains access to a secret shortcut into Lost Izalith, the very place where Solaire succumbed to his madness. In this shortcut, they can find none other than the Sunlight Maggot. By killing it before Solaire can reach it, the player can keep him from ever encountering it, thus saving his life. The player can then find Solaire rather than attacking them, fully sane yet lamenting his failure to fulfill his quest beside the corpse of the Sunlight Maggot. Truly depressed, but alive. Is it really the player's place to do this, however? Even with how grim Solaire's ending would otherwise be, he found true peace in his last moments, believing himself to have found his son in his dying breath. Would he be better off dead yet having believed he fulfilled his mission, or alive in a sullen, broken state? Well, the player never really has a chance to find out, as this is the very last the player sees of him. His story doesn't see a happy ending either way. Despite his jovial attitude, his previously unwavering resolve, and his positive outlook, just like the world of Dark Souls, Solaire's story only ends in darkness. With one exception. If the player takes every step to save Solaire, meeting him in every location, paying the 30 humanity, and killing the Sunlight Maggot, the player and their dear friend can have one last victory lap together, and its backdrop, the Kiln of the First Flame, and the final boss. After the player has defeated every enemy that stood in their way and set their sights on Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, they may be surprised to see a familiar sight awaiting them outside his boss arena.
I am a warrior of the sun. Spot my summon signature easily by its brilliant aura. If you miss it, you must be blind.
None other than Solaire's summoning sign. Through unknown means, he found his way into the kiln and found the resolve to accompany the player for their final battle. From here, the player and Solaire can battle their way through the last few Black Knights that stand in their way and take on their final challenge together. Though different in circumstances, the player, a chosen warrior destined on choosing the fate of the world, and Solaire, a sullen warrior using his last bit of resolve to help his friend, can defeat Gwyn and end their journeys on equal footing. Solaire may not have found his son, and the player's efforts may have been in vain ultimately, but both of them found something truly valuable, an ally they could rely on against even the harshest of adversities. This is the true beauty of Solaire of Astora's story, and why it's one of the most gripping character arcs in any video game ever to me. Through all of the memes, all of the praise of the suns, all of the t-shirts, the merchandise, it's a true demonstration of how, in the right circumstances, a positive attitude can be all that someone needs to persevere through the worst of circumstances, and yet how those circumstances can lead to that attitude faltering, taking hold of someone in their moments of weakness. And finally, just like the sun itself, how resolve and the will to push forward can rise again through the darkness, shining brightly on all of those who observe it.
The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.